Okay, so this month we are doing all sorts of materials. I wanted to do a couple of materials which I think are very frequently used, but those would just be glass or transparent objects and metal objects. So, how to render glass as well as metal. But that's just two of the various materials that are possible. So, I want to throw it out to all of you to think about other stuff that you feel you would like to know. And by that, I mean, just think of anything like you have wood, you have uh, textiles, and with textiles, then you have all sorts of stuff. You have fabric, you have textured fabric, you have knits, anything, denim. So, any kind of surface which is made out of a particular distinguishable material, we can take that up. Hopefully, that way I can do different materials in different batches. So, the glass, transparency, and metals will be done by me for sure in all classes. But everything else, if you all don't come up with something, I'll come up. It's not as if there's any pressure on all of you. But if you do have something, that would be nice that everyone can do that. You can share that over time on the group, share pictures or references of those materials, then it becomes a lot easier to look for reference images of that nature also. So today we're going to start off with pencil sketching, and we are going to be sketching glasses of water. Both items over here, both are materials and both are transparent materials. Water itself is also a material and glass is also a material. So we're tackling the two together. Um, Water behaves differently in different places. So if you just take a drop of water, it behaves a certain way. If you take water in a lake or a water body, it behaves a different way. By behaves, I mean in terms of illustration. We have to look out for different kinds of things. When we do landscape painting, we have done painting of water. So that has been tackled. And this is water in glass to show transparency. And this is just the way to show this. It's no different from showing other transparent or slightly translucent materials in a transparent container. So that could be something like juices, iced tea, whiskey, or you might have things like honey, and you might also have colored glass instead of clear glass. So a few things remain the same once we do this exercise. So we are going to be using a regular pencil, but I'll also, if you have a mechanical pencil, keep that out because we get a sharp edge with a mechanical pencil. If you have a paper stump, keep that handy because then we can do a certain amount of blending. If you don't have a paper stump, if you have a cotton earbud, then you can use that. If you don't have that, you can use maybe just a piece of cotton wrapped around a toothpick or something, or anything soft that does not create any marks on the paper. And in the absence of that, don't worry, it's not necessary. We can just shade much lighter and create the effect. I'm going to try to not use the blending stump at all, but I'll demonstrate at least so that you know how the blending stump makes a big difference. And for today's exercise, we are going to use the eraser. So keep your erasers handy. Those of you who've thrown them out of your window, go and retrieve them and keep them handy. I think now everyone is mature enough to know when to use it and why to use it. So I don't have to monitor it anymore. Okay, so let me go over the pictures. This is one of my most favorite topics, pencil sketching, and that too something like water, because it is very often I have been challenged by well-meaning but mean friends to prove to them how much good I am at art than them. And they'll say, oh, you can draw anything. Let's see you draw a glass of water. For some reason, people believe that drawing transparency is almost like magic. How can you draw something that we can't even see? That is how the brain works. So it's not what we don't see that we have to draw any case, We have to only draw what we do see, and in that we will create the illusion of that which exists but is not visible. So it's actually very easy to draw transparencies because most of the object is not even seen. If you think about it, if I give you a bottle in color or with a lot of print, you have to draw all of that. But in a clear glass bottle, there is nothing to draw because there's nothing to be seen. One second. Right. So let's see the pictures. I have these transparent containers or receptacles or with water in them or a clear liquid. Let's say it is a clear liquid like water, could be anything, and clear glass. And in the first two instances, this is against a clear white background. So we get to see every nuance of the glass and every nuance of the water as well. Then the next picture is against a gray background. So over here, things change a little bit, where you start seeing a little bit of highlight even on the glass itself. You do not see that in the first image because it's all white. Neither over here. But here you see that highlight on the right. And then subsequent pictures also have the highlight on the glass, which would probably have gone missing if the background was white. This is almost like a still life painting of a glass container. Very pretty. Just 1 second. Okay. So these are all clear glass containers. And then the last one is color. If we have time, we will try to make a loose watercolor illustration of this in the end. But in the beginning, right now, let's focus on these illustrations. Let's try to make this, shall we make this glass? In yesterday's class, I made this one. So today we can try making this glass. Okay? All right. So start off by making the proportions of the glass itself. Always leave enough room at the top, sides, and bottom so that in case your drawing expands a little bit, it does not look odd and you have enough space. Anytime you're making an illustration, don't try to fit the illustration to the space you have. If you have made the illustration on the side and it wants to extend it. Don't cut it short because all the proportions go for a toss. So when you're starting off, first thing, keep your reference image in the same plane as your paper. I'm looking at the reference image on the screen and I'm also looking at my drawing on the screen. So they're essentially on the same plane and it becomes easier for me to evaluate whether I'm drawing the right shapes in the right places. So here, let's start with first making an oval shape. And make multiple lines. We are going to use an eraser wherever needed so we can correct these lines. After you've drawn even the oval, look at the size or the proportions of the oval. An oval has two important factors, the width and the height ratio. So look at the image on this on your screen, the reference image, and adjust this size so that it looks like what you see in the reference image. Very often, what we perceive while we look at an image is different from what our eyes are seeing. So use objective measurements to assess whether or not you have got your proportions right. So if possible, on the picture, if you can measure how many what is the mathematical ratio between the height and the width, that's excellent. But much of this can be done visually also. Very often we'll end up making a generic oval that is very flat, because in our mind's eye, we think that the glass should be like this. A little before this, when you are beginners, the shape can be somewhat even. I've seen this rarely happen, but it does happen, that you will make a more circular looking top of the glass. Now pull these lines down straight. And here are a few tips when you're drawing these lines. Avoid making vertical lines like this. This does not give you a good line. Whenever you're making vertical lines, hold your pencil far away and try making lines perpendicular to the pencil going all the way down. You can always extend the line beyond the height of the glass and then give yourself enough space to adjust where the glass might be. Excuse me. Now, if you flatten your reference image, you will see that there is I'm going to draw this over here. You have, I'm drawing it very crudely, deliberately, because I don't want it to look like the glass. This is how we have our glass, and there is an oval shape in the center. So we have this distance, we have this distance, we have this, and then we have a dark patch. So we have this, and we have this. So there's 5 distinct spaces. This can be observed if you flatten the image. Don't look at it as water. Look at it as an oval shape. Then you have a space between 2 ovals, another oval shape. Then you have this curved space, and then you have a dark patch, almost a crescent at the bottom. And you can get a cue on distances by using the opening or the mouth of the glass as one unit. The next oval is somewhere about the same distance below. So you don't make the whole glass first. You start with making an oval for where the water level is. Only after you draw it will you know whether it is right or wrong. 2 parallel lines of the glass will look like they're going sideways now. If you're unsure, measure them. And look at each curve to see if you've got the right shape. Draw these lines very light. Most of these lines are going to be erased. Then you have a certain distance, maybe till about here. And here you will draw the bottom of the glass, which comes down to about so much. Okay, how are your glasses looking? Are you happy with the proportions? Now, some of you just examine and see if the bottom of the glass is flat. Are you making something that's looking like this? You have an oval, and then you have something that is somewhat like that. Have any of you drawn it like this? It's a very natural reaction to draw it. If you have, then I can explain what might be happening. Okay, Ritika's is looking good. Yeah.
The top one, Aditi ma'am, I mean, it's not that what
Yeah, it needs to be a little wider.
wider.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Height needs to increase. Alka, your distances between the ovals are a bit too much. Reduce that. Jai, yours is the same. Archana, I think your distances can also reduce. This distance and this distance can reduce. Ritu also. Ritu, I think the top is fine, but this bottom distance is a little more. Just check it. Tarini, I can't see. Huh, okay. Yeah, I think yours looks okay. This distance I think is a little more, but this is less. So I just want you to move this line higher. This one higher, Tarini. Okay. Now I want to just show you how observation of cylinders works. When you look at a glass from the side and a certain distance away, I'm just going to keep the camera a certain distance away. When you look at a glass from the side, uh, you sometimes see only a flat line. Here you see a very gentle curve, but it can almost seem like this is also flat. So essentially what you see is a rectangle. Now, if I start tilting the glass a little bit, just look at the top. From a flat line, it starts becoming a very small oval. And then as I change the angle, it starts becoming bigger. So right now I'm changing the angle of the glass, but what's happening is my point of view is changing. So here it is at 90 degrees to the glass or this surface of the glass. And as I start tilting it, that angle instead of 90, it starts becoming more angular. So the more angular my point of view towards the glass becomes, I can start seeing the shapes in more of a three-dimensional form. And if I continue to this, go all the way, I will now see it at 0 degrees. Let's say this was 90 perpendicular. Now I'm seeing it at 0 degrees. So I see the entire circle, but I don't see any height or any width. So there are two ways in which we flatten a three-dimensional object. One is from the side and one is from the top. So here we are looking at it from the top and everything is flat. You see an internal circle, which is the bottom, but you can't really tell. This could well have been a disc. I could hold it like that and it might look like a disc until I turn and you see this angle change. So I'm turning it, just look at this. And it happens with even rings. So if I take even a rubber band, if I look at it from the side, it looks like just a single line. And if I were to tilt it a little bit, then you start seeing it more as a circle, right? So I want you to visualize or do this visualizing exercise. Draw 2 lines, not too wide. The center is a flat line. This is your eye line. And like in perspective drawing, eye line is where everything looks flat and horizontal. You don't see angles of buildings and you do not see ovals in cylinders. This is the eye line. Now, as I start moving the eye line above, this starts changing. So this becomes an oval. And then as I come down, the oval increases higher and higher. The higher and higher I go, I can start seeing more and more above the glass. Can you see this? Till finally I come to a point where I can see the full circle. So I can do it this way, and I can also do it the other way. If I go underneath it, again, I can do the same thing. And that circle becomes small, but I can see it from the bottom. So can you see this as if I'm tilting a glass or a cylindrical surface in my hand? First, I see it from the bottom, then I see it from the top. Why this is important is for us is because when we visualize on blank paper, we need to understand these things as parts of an object that are going to finish. Without the information about the liquid inside, the shading, the highlights, the shadows, you can't convince me that this is a three-dimensional object. At best, I can see an oval and some curves. If we want accuracy in this illustration, we should get the right degree of curve. So if you look at this image over here, what you'll see is the curve on top, say this curve over here, this curve and this curve have some relation depending upon where we are seeing it from. So because of the distance between the opening of the glass and the middle where the water level is and the bottom, these curves will steadily be turning rounder and rounder. This is what is happening over here. We have the glass top over here, and then because we are seeing it from the top, as it goes lower and lower and lower, this starts becoming rounder. Sorry, it's blurring a little bit. If this is the glass, I'm seeing it from the top. My eye line is over here. As I see the cylinder, the bottom of that object is going to look rounder at the base. Am I making sense or am I confusing everyone?
No, it's perfect, Aditi.
All right. Okay, now from here on, we are going to do a lot of pencil shading. So if you have a rough sheet of paper, please get that. Use as a guard sheet so that you don't smudge everything else. All right. Now to begin shading, don't start from the top. We are going to first, because you want to give an overall gray shade to all of this, which can also be done later. Start from the easier part of the glass where you can see the shades very clearly. So I'm going to start from the bottom. And what I'll do is give myself these edges and shade the sections which I want colored dark. So over here, you'll notice that they're just below the lowest point of this curve on top. You see a slightly clear line going almost straight. It's not touching the lowest point of the curve, but it is straight. Then you have a little bit of a highlight from the right and a bump in the surface. The edge of that line is also very blurred, so don't make it too sharp. And start shading this in a mid-tone. A mid-tone is somewhere between the lightest tone and darkest tone. And if you're unfamiliar with that, quickly make a sample of your color or your tonal chart. Just barely touch the pencil to paper and see what is the lightest shade you can make. Then press the pencil really hard and see what is the darkest you can make. And the two tones between these two will be the mid-tones. So you can create a mid-tone by gently increasing the pressure from the lightest and keeping it just less than the darkest. We will never be painting directly, not never, right now we are. What we are doing is painting somewhere over here, because if we paint the lighter, then we will have to keep layering it. So use a tone like this. Even where we are sketching a very dark tone eventually. We don't want to abrase the paper, remember that. So just gentle pressure is good enough. While you are shading, you will notice that the paper, because it's textured, will not take on the graphite very smoothly, and it will leave some white patches. So don't put too much pressure in those patches. You can take the tip of the pencil and with light pressure, just fill in the gaps. It's much cleaner that way. So this is a solution for shading without having to use that blending stump. The blending stump will do exactly the same thing for you. It compresses the graphite powder into all the spaces that the pencil tip cannot reach. Very lightly mark all the points where you see highlights. So whenever you are confronted with something like this, an object which has multiple shapes in different tones and shades, look at it as if you're zooming in. Zoom into each area and try to see that within that area, is there a line that you can draw or a shape that you can clearly see, figure out and sketch out. Now here I have to make this line straight. So making minor adjustment. And straight almost all the way till here, to the end. Now the next shape. Once you've started with one, you can start seeing the other shapes much more easily. So it starts off a little wide on the left, starts becoming narrow towards the center. If it's too narrow and you can't reach it, leave it for now. We can come back into it in a second or a third round. of shading. All these things that we are shading right now are maybe 50% of what we have to do. And we keep coming back to these same areas to change shapes, to add more graphite, change the tone perhaps, and constantly make adjustments. Now, when I come to the next section, sorry, before that, when you're shading over here, avoid shading up and down or at an angle. Use horizontal lines to shade. This might seem very unnatural because we hardly ever use a horizontal line other than for drawing. Shading might often come easier in vertical strokes, but in that you will be subtly changing the line or the rendering of water. Okay, so can everyone see these shapes, these subtle shapes in the glass, or are you having trouble?
No, they're visible, Aditi.
They are, no?
Yeah.
Okay, good. If you are unsure about the this the total edge of this shape, you can draw a line like this very lightly so you know how far you need to come, because it's very critical that you get all these shapes in a particular form, because that will hint at the edge of the glass, the base of the glass. There's a small white highlight in that space, and we must not ignore it. Now, at this stage, you might be tempted to zoom in and see the details of that circular whirlpool-like pattern right at the base. I would suggest refrain from zooming in quite as yet. Move on to the next shape. Now, I'm going to just make a list of the things to avoid. And another thing that you have to avoid is rotating the book. The moment you rotate the book, your point of view will change. Now, in this case, you might feel that shading over here or drawing over here is very difficult. So let me rotate and I'll try drawing the line like this. But unless you rotate your reference image, you don't know if you're making the right line. It might be easier to draw, but you will easily be drawing the wrong line. So even if it takes a little time and it seems a little difficult, draw a small part of the line at a time, but draw it in the right orientation. Right-handed people will have a problem drawing from the left coming towards the center. And left-handed people will have a problem coming from the right towards the center. Now, a few tips on shading. When you are shading mid-tones, try to keep your pencil in the same orientation and don't roll it too much. That way, the shading is fairly even. When you have to go to dark tones, hold the pencil more upright and press down with the tip. And because the tip keeps getting eroded with every patch of shading that you do, you can keep rotating the pencil so that it gets sharpened while you are shading itself. When shading, move from one area to its adjacent area. Don't go from here right to the top or to the middle, because you don't know if that distance is yet right until you finish this section. At any point, if you feel confused, the lines that you are drawing are not clear, you're not able to see or observe what you are drawing next, just pause and literally go for a walk. Just leave your desk, go for a walk somewhere, and then come back and see it again. Shading this side, the side on the opposite side of your writing or drawing hand, change the grip of the pencil. Don't be tempted to go up and down again over here. Paint it in a contour shape to the glass. There are certain patches over here where the gray is not uniform. And there could also be a few highlights which are too minuscule to note. When you are shading in contour, you can easily just not shade in a small section and just ignore it, and that will look like a highlight. So even if it is not 100% accurate, you will have represented a highlight by leaving a section unsketched. Maybe there are some bits of glass that are creating shapes. We often see that where there are clumps of glass. That automatically gets created. Now, if you will notice the right edge of the glass, there's a highlight. So only the base or a shadow touching the glass is visible, and everything else up to that point is pretty dark. Okay, how many times have you all erased till now? And how far has everyone come?
Me just once.
Okay, good.
Me thrice.
All right, good. So you're not using it as a crutch. Very good. Now at this point, my midtones have been filled in, and I feel fairly confident about filling in the dark tones. And for that, I will use my mechanical pencil. Now, in this case also, you'll notice that the lines or the edges are not all very sharp lines. So when you're shading this dark, also start from somewhere in the middle, not the edge. We want fuzzy edges. And a fuzzy edge comes when there's a slight lightness at the edge. You can do the same thing with a regular pencil as well. By holding it upright and adding some extra pressure. Why I'm telling you this is because I have seen a lot of people hold the pencil very flat and try to press hard. When you hold the pencil flat, you have to hold it far away. So just pure physics does not allow you to employ too much pressure on the pencil. And plus, the flat edge of the pencil colors more than is necessary. So out of sheer ignorance sometimes and assuming that all artists hold the pencil really far away and do all the shading holding it far away, I have also shaded like that, and then I found a big mess. Holding it far is good to draw long lines. Holding it in the middle is good to draw or shade midtones. And holding it closer allows you to give accurate pressure in a small area to do the darker tones. And believe me, this is not intuitive knowledge. So do not be embarrassed if you've been doing something like that and think that, oh, this is like so easy. Everybody uses the pencil as their first tool of writing. I should have known it. It's not like that. With every darkening of the line, check that you are darkening it in the right place. So this oval shape has to be in the center. So check at least visually if it's appearing in the center. And if it's not, then erase and adjust. Sometimes you'll be able to tell that even before you darken the lines around it. Sometimes only after darkening the lines around it will you notice it and say, oh, this is probably a little too narrow or too much to one side than the other. So in a way, an exercise in pencil sketching can also be seen as an exercise in, I guess, let me think of a word for it. Hindsight. Like they say in hindsight, everything is clear, 2020. In pencil sketching, you practice hindsight and to some extent. You can draw it, you can erase it. So that's a little better than actions that we do in life. If you've gone and eaten that ice cream yesterday, 2020 hindsight is not going to help. You can't erase anything. But at least in pencil, sketching, once you've done it, it's easier for you to evaluate it, and you can always go back and erase it and make a new line. But making that first line in pencil shading is a good thing. Even if it is wrong, you will not know what to do until you make that first line. And any action that is going to help you do the right thing is not a bad action. For those of you who might be struggling with that fuzzy line, I just wanted to demonstrate a fuzziness. Suppose we want to make, let me use the mechanical pencil and make a very sharp circle. This circle has got a sharp edge. If I want to make the edge fuzzy, I can take my blending stump and blend it outward. And this gives me a fuzzy edge, right? This is one way. But there is another way in case you don't have a blending stump. First, make a light to medium dark circle, and then using the mechanical pencil, gently start darkening just the center of that circle. And automatically you'll start creating a fuzzy edge because the dark part does not go right to the edge. And you still get, it almost looks like it's out of focus. So when we come to the edge over here, we need it a little fuzzy. We can go at it with a pencil stump or a blending stump and blend it, but it's a little out of control and we need to use the eraser more frequently. But if you just avoid going right up to the edge and shade a dark tone only a few mm up to the edge, wherever you see that edge, you should still be able to create a fuzzy line. So even here, where I have a highlight, I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. And I cannot see the end of the glass, so I'm leaving a little gap so that instead of erasing, if I feel that I want to fill that space up, I can come and fill it up separately.
Aditi, can you see this? I'm not done, but I'm just.
Yeah. Okay, shapes are looking good. Okay, I think you're in the right direction. The top part, I think, can be a little flatter.
Okay.
It's looking a little rounder than should be necessary. Okay, now I'm pretty satisfied at this stage with the bottom part. We are going to right now again ignore the gray bit and go straight to the surface of water. First, draw out the shapes, mark out the shapes. There is an oval or half oval shape one can see there. So you can make a line in the center. And you'll notice that just along the top edge, there's a shape like this. Some parts of this bow shape are visible clearly, like over here, and some parts are not. Don't try to think what it is. If you know what it is, great. If you can't figure out what it is, let it be. The oval over here extends all the way to the top, but the top part is not visible. We only see till here. This is transparent, almost invisible. So we're not going to shade over there. And all the remaining shapes are made on only this weird shape inside of that surface. Okay, I'm pulling out my eraser here because there's too many lines. And I can't tell which one to use. So I'm getting rid of few lines. So that I can make the right shapes. Now this is a spot where those of you who did a little bit of pencil yoga will feel, I guess, gratified or redeemed, whatever the word is. There's always that one exercise where the node of the class feels superior. I've always been, or not always, often been the nerd of the class when I was in school. And I used to feel it's such a shame that I do so much of homework and practice at home, and all the nincompoops in the class just go carry on without any of that practice. How does it help? Then there's one day, that one assignment, the teacher would ask, who has read this? And I would just so gleefully raise my hand, and I would probably be one of 3 people out of 50 who would have done it just because we were asked to do it. I haven't done it all the time, I admit. I did not do maths that way or sciences. I did not learn my tables and all that way. So I was very selective, but some subjects definitely.
What I still remember, tables used to be like a real pain, and my dad would say, "Come, I'm going to take your tables," and I'm like, "Shit,
I know.
terrible."
Yeah, that used to be such a nightmare. And then suddenly they
And
would do that dodging. 17
Dodging,
fours are, oh
exactly.
my God. And you're like, I don't.
And my mom would also ask me, she would say, if I wake you up in your sleep, and I ask you what are 4 sevens are, you should be able to tell. And I would say, okay, what 4 sevens? I'd better learn what 4 sevens are in case she wakes me up. Not getting the point that it could be anything.
and that generation knew their tables by heart, and my dad would
Yeah.
speak Hindi, and that
Yeah.
would be worse.
I think that is where
My
we
mom
lost
would do
her.
it in Malayalam.
Yeah.
And it, oof, and they did, all this 1/4 and 1/3 wala tables also. It was crazy.
So I feel now, whoever, if you can catch hold of anyone from that generation who knows the tables in those languages, please make a recording, because I'm doing that with my dad. He knows the tables in Marathi and they're so fast, and he knows
Yeah.
fractions also.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Fractions. My mom used to also do the fractions.
yeah. So please, if you find somebody, make a recording and please put it on YouTube.
My dad used to do it in Punjabi.
My God, look at this.
And he also used to do it so fast. He used to ask me like this, and I was like, what is he asking? What do I have to do?
I don't know how they did it.
This is like at one point, one of my friends asked me, do you see everything in color or black and white? I'm like, I'll now have to think.
But you know, the fascinating thing is that most animals see stuff in monochrome. Like humans are among the very few who actually see color.
I find that so hard to believe. It
You
makes
know?
no sense at all.
We are the only ones with rods and cones. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Sometimes I look at a cow and I think, what must that cow be seeing me as a flat paper in
Black and
thing
white picture.
in
As
black?
a black and white
Oh,
picture.
like must be thinking I'm such a funny thing to look at. You know, cows have this funny habit of looking at you. They look up at you and they'll keep on chewing.
Yeah.
And they're still looking at you as if you're weird or something.
Hmm. Maybe they're meditating.
On your face, imagine. Meditating is okay, but looking at you and what all thoughts must be going through.
At least you're giving somebody peace, yeah.
I don't know whether it's you or it's that stuff in their mouth that they're chewing.
I know. And then that's the thing, no? They'll stare at you, and then after all that thought, they'll be like, "Oh, food is better," and then go down and go and take another bite.
They would be thinking, even if you were grass, I wouldn't chew you.
Really, really.
Okay, now through this exercise, do you feel you've become a little comfortable with shading? There's too much shading in one exercise, so I'm hoping that you'll have become a little easier through the exercise.
See, what happens is, Aditi, when you explain it, I mean, like how to break it down, no, then it becomes much easier.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it seems like a mammoth task, totally.
Okay. But so the principles are clear, right? Now, tomorrow, if you are faced with another object like this, and it doesn't have to be a transparent object, would you be comfortable beginning this and saying, okay, now I have one exercise under my belt. So now I get an idea of how I can proceed at least and start and at least come to about 50%. Because if not, then we can discuss even further. Maybe you could just check, look for some images. Okay, before I go there, notice how in this triangular section over here, there's a light, slightly light part of it. That's part of this highlight. And then it becomes dark. So in this area, you can make it a dark to light shading. Make it a little dark here. And as you go towards the right, reduce it so that you get the a gradual change in shade over here. And the second thing you can also do is use your eraser to pick up a little bit of lead here and there and make it lighter. And the third thing you can do is use a paper stump, a blending stump, and spread the lead from the left top towards the right and smooth that line. So personally, I'm not a big fan of blending stumps because they just make everything too smooth and unnatural almost.
No, and also I find if you use it, then you need to use it all over
Correct.
because otherwise it looks very inconsistent.
Exactly. So I've used it. That same thing's happened now. I used it over there, so it's happened over here.
Yeah, exactly.
But fortunately, because it's in a area where I could darken it, this won't be a big problem. Oh, by the way, it has been weeks now, Susan. I want to thank you for your birthday card. Every class, I forget in the calligraphy class, I forget in the Saturday class. Let me please bring it out. It's so pretty.
Susan, my birthday is in December, yeah. Please send me.
You should get your card, don't worry.
I think you'll get it. Everyone will get
Yeah,
it.
everyone will get. Oh, that's so pretty.
So I'm just giving in advance.
Yeah.
These are so.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Lovely.
Very
Susan, I'm turning
your
60
50th
next year,
birthday.
beginning.
That's
nice.
lovely.
This
That's
almost looks like
beautiful.
it's printed. It's so nice.
Wow.
That's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
And I like
And
this.
I love this. Oh, made with heart. Yeah. Is it a stamp or like?
Sorry, I'm talking on mute. Yeah, it's a stamp. I have a stamp.
Wow, this is so
You know,
Lovely.
Susan, you can get a stamp made with this.
With my
Instead-
handwriting.
Yeah, I mean, instead of using the ready stamp and a line,
Okay.
or also if you're using this, what I'd recommend is block the line or shave it off. You don't need a line here.
Uh-huh.
This is for the muggles who don't know how to write in a straight line, even their name. So we are not that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the utilitarian part. My daughter
I
sits
know.
it for her cards.
So yeah, you can keep it for that, but
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
you know what you can do is place a paper and
And
then
then-
just stamp this part. So the line comes on the paper and you then can use more space to write your
True.
name.
I'll do that. I didn't think of that. But yeah, I could. It's reached.
Also, why don't you just make a nice graphic
Yeah,
with
I know.
this, and you can get a rubber stamp made of this itself.
My name, no?
Yeah,
In-
so
in
you
let-
can say made with love by, you can write on top exactly this way and this
Mhm.
whole thing. So you can
Ah.
get that stamp made also.
Yeah. That's a good idea. So you know what? I attended a lino cut class last weekend.
Uh-huh.
And it was so fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. I mean, I couldn't get over the idea that you can do so much now. You can make your art, and of course, you can't make it very fine. You have to get really good at it. But once you make your art, you can actually
Make.
carve out that little piece. And so, first thing I wanted was a monogram. I wanted an S.
Oh, hello.
Don't show, Susan. I didn't see it.
No, it
You
wasn't
make
a
it?
monogram, it was a kid.
You don't know. So lino cut was a lovely this thing. I thought maybe next time I'll make a picture and then I will do a lino cut of that picture. Quite
Yeah,
fun.
you could do that. You could also make just your initial, like you said, a monogram. On lino cut, you can't make it too fine, right? But you can make a base. So, for example, you can make a base S, and then you can embellish around it.
So like you had done for this thing, what is it? Drop caps, and even later you did with those initials. You put an S and you put an M, and they all intertwine.
Correct.
That you definitely can do it. So I was thinking drop caps, definitely some drop cap. So I did finally manage to make something and look really nice, but great fun. Huh? I mean, if you know how
Yeah.
to make your own picture, and then most people, what they do is they take an image from the net
Right.
and then draw it out. But
Yeah.
then there's the fun is making your own picture, design your own things.
So you can also make that
Oh,
on.
Susan. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, go on, Tarun.
Can you see my card? No?
Where is your card?
That your video is pointing.
My video is on. My
No,
video
it's facing backwards.
Yeah,
Oh.
but it's focusing. Matlab, there's a
At the
reflection of the
back.
window.
Oh,
Take a camera.
it's how do I turn it around? Anyway.
Rear.
थोड़ा सा
There's-
ऊपर if you can do it.
Just hold the, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm showing you the other way now.
Yes.
Can you see my stamp?
Oh yeah.
Very nice.
Copy. Acha, no name. Yeah.
No. Studio Tarini.
Oh, how
and
lovely.
Just a little
Oh.
motif below. I got it done a few months ago.
Oh, really?
I have 2-3 of these.
Oh, and these are rubber stamps. Those
Yeah, it's
Yeah, you
like
can
this.
you
Yeah.
can take this to a
Can you
stamp
see this? This
maker.
is my stamp. I have various colors ink, and I
right.
use them. I make cards like these. I have
Then-
them ready all the time, and I put this at the back, and I write my message above it. So
Very nice.
it's like you know how little girls play ghar ghar and khelni and all that house.
Yeah.
I play paint.
Yeah. It's
So
very
I'll-
Time
easy.
out.
And many of these stamps can be made online also. But
Yeah.
when you go to any corner store, usually one of those photocopy stores, some of them also make stamps. So you can just check with them. You can give them a handmade design also, because all they do is scan it,
Yeah.
print it on a particular vinyl, which then they treat with UV so that the rest of the design melts away and you get your rubber stamp. So it's very easy to do, not very expensive, and you can keep changing every year or so. I get very bored of my stamps, so then I keep changing it. You can get self-inking and hajar varieties also.
So I also attended fun workshop last Saturday, because I wasn't there in class, and we made these nice little notebooks.
I-
We did
I was thinking,
this
yeah,
one,
you did ours also. And which other workshop you
and
had?
we did this one. And
So
then
much-
I came home, and then I did a whole lot more there.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Very
So,
nice.
yeah.
So you made the paper and bound book?
No, we just bound the book. The paper
Okay,
is
bound.
the
Okay.
inside paper is regular printed paper, printer
Okay,
paper.
okay.
This is handmade paper, which
Ah.
Roshan got from Goa. And so
Okay.
we did the entire binding and stitching job.
So good. So good.
And yeah, this is another one that I made. But they look really fancy. And they look
This
so
you can
professional,
have
like, you know.
one online, no? It would be really good.
I'll do that.
Yeah, it would be
Get
really nice.
Rohan to do an online workshop.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
we did one more where we made paper with the paper that's still with Aditi, because they are drying. Have they dried, Aditi?
They have dried and now they're being pressed.
Oh, okay, fine. So yeah. So
Susan,
but
I'll tag you. I'll
was
tag you on
real
the
fun.
page of the girl who made this for me.
Yeah. Do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But Tarini, why don't you share her details on the group itself?
All
I'm
right.
sure everyone else would also like to try making a stamp of their
Sure,
own.
sure. I'll
So we
share.
can all
I'll
get it.
share the profile URL.
Yeah, that'd
Okay?
be good.
Doing it right away. She's very reasonable and very enthusiastic about doing what you want. You know.
How nice.
She's my niece's friend. Actually, I've never met her, but got the whole thing done online.
Okay, cool. Very nice. The stamp looks very good.
It is good.
Okay, let's get back to the shading. Okay, so now the middle portion will continue the way it is. I just wanted to speak a little bit about the top. All containers which have an oval top, to avoid making them look very boring two-dimensional objects, there's a technique with which you shade or even sometimes draw the oval shape or the mouth of that object. So when you're just making a plain drawing without any shading, normally we would make we think that the cup would be made like that, or the glass would be made like that. But it almost looks like it's a paper thin object. There is no dimension to it. But if we change this, if we break these two curves and make the bottom like this, oh, this looks like a smile. A little pareidolia is happening here. And then for the top curve, make a curve around the edges of the side. You accommodate the rim and then bring that line down Just this much will make your paper thin object look like it's got some dimension, some thickness. Now, when it comes to an object like our glass, here, what you will do is observe that we do have a rim which has a thickness. The thickness is uniform more or less throughout our oval. But you can't make the whole thing dark or light, put a shadow or highlight on the whole rim. And this changes according to where you have the source of light. So in this case, you will notice that there's a highlight over here and in the opposite direction over here. That's usually the case. The highlight is rarely ever only in asymmetrical positions. Then there's a minor highlight over here and over here. And then you have dark patches on the sides. Now, these dark patches are not a parallel patch. They are a thin crescent shape. So right from this edge on the left, you draw a crescent shape which starts or incorporates a little bit of the outside of the glass, in this case, becomes thick towards the middle, and then turns and touches the inner edge of the glass. So you need to notice these things about shadows. This may not be the case every time. Then there's a little gap on the side. I'm going to draw this line from the top because it's a little easier. That gap is obscured, so I'm going to erase between. If you have one of those solid erasers, I got it once, but I've kept it very safely, so obviously I won't find it when I need it. You can use that because it has a sharp edge. And then there's a gap. There is no line at that gap, so don't make a line. Don't try to convince anyone that that's glass. The absence of a line over there will make it look like a transparent object. And now see what is happening. I'm now using a thin line to show the inside of the glass. And the same thing that was happening on the left is again happening on the right. I need to bring this a little low. Now here, after I've drawn the two lines carefully, holding the book upright, I can now tilt the book and again do the same thing. The outside is darker, not touching the inside till I come to the side of the glass, and then bringing it to the inside part. So do this shading very slowly. Also, you can do it from medium to light. Oh, sorry, light to medium, medium to dark. And then the center also has a little bit of a thickness. the thicker shadow, and then it becomes lighter. The same process on the edge. And see how it starts looking like a three-dimensional rim. I'll remove the unnecessary lines, especially all these vertical, horizontal, angular lines. And make it clean. Now the big question is, at what point and how do we depict all the gray? I think all of you would be able to finish the center part quite easily. So I'm going to show you, if I want to make this whole thing in the gray tone that it should have, how to go about it. Now we also have a little shadow and highlight to the left. So I'm marking that space. And then I'm marking the shadow space, which is the edge of the glass, a little fuzzy line going to the left side, and there's some coming to the right as well. Now, if you're going to make it a gray space around, we should give it some border. And I will use my trusty tapes for that. I usually don't make fully gray objects, but not because I don't know how to. I think I just get very lazy. So I will just make it something like this and leave it at that. But it can be a good exercise to practice shading and make some objects gray with a gray background as well. I'm pulling the left edge in a little bit, although I'd wanted to make a larger shadow. I'll pull the edge in and make it at least more uniform. So the same amount of space from the left and the right. All right. Now, after we have done all the shading and we want to give the whole page of gray background, my strategy is to just shade everything gray, a light gray, through and through, except for the places where you have a highlight. So you can literally go over the lines of the glass and make this all gray, except the highlights. I'm holding the pencil really far away and barely touching the pencil to paper. We could do this right in the beginning also, but I like the control of white paper. And at this point, we can use a blending stump and blend through. I need a fatter stump. Okay, I'm just gonna go old fashioned. Use my finger. This part is not even necessary as far as our exercise is concerned, but it's just good to know how to go about this. Simply because sometimes you get the opportunity of making very, very dramatic shades when your backgrounds are deeper in color. Okay, now I'm changing the direction and shading a little more. And some of this is now just going to be my interpretation. So I'm going to shade darker along the edges to make the glass of water look like it's glowing.
Ladies, I have to leave. Thank you, Aditi.
Okay.
Have a nice weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Tarini.
Aditi ma'am, for the retreat, would you be sharing a bit on, when do you plan to leave? Because I want to book the flight.
Oh, yeah. Ritika, I'm going to advise you to, you can come by the early morning flight on the 8th.
On the 8th, okay.
Yeah, so if anything that is reaching by maybe 8 o'clock or so, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, that's good because then we'll just whisk you away to Pasgani with us directly.
Okay, okay.
It's good to reach there by lunchtime.
Yeah,
So anything early, if you can come, then you can just sleep in the car.
yeah, okay.
If you have to come, otherwise later, then come the day before.
Yeah, I think probably I would prefer the weekend. Yes,
Okay.
day before. Yeah.
All right. ठीक है.
So I explore a bit Pune. Yes.
Yeah. Then come a day before, and then it becomes easier also. Then we can leave earlier as well.
Okay. Okay. And then we return on 12th to Pune, right?
Yes. By evening we'll return.
Okay. But it's good. I mean, this time you have taken the weekends also, so I will plan to take weekends for travel.
Yeah. The weekend I could not take because the person with whom I was booking the tickets, he's a member, but they said weekends you can book only 2 rooms or 3 rooms. And we needed at least 4 or 5 rooms.
Yeah, because more people would be coming from nearby places.
Yeah, so then he said during the week, if you want, I can book any number of rooms for you. But weekend, because it's a very sought after place, we can't do more than 2 rooms per member, even if you're a member.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I have to leave.
Okay, just one thing before your leave. Now, this is where your eraser comes in handy. After you've done this smudging and everything, you can use the eraser to mark the highlights in the right places very subtly. And sometimes you can go all through the shading as well. So it's not visible here, but this is such a subtle highlight or something over here In the large picture, it makes a big difference. Okay, so this can continue. You can, as you go along, you will notice you can make more and more nuances. I will finish this. I will show you how the shadows look also, so that once the tape is removed, it'll look much more dramatic. Okay, thank you everyone.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Sadhya,
Bye,
thanks.
Aditi. Thanks a lot. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.